I don't think so at all, Karen, because at the end of the day, what you're seeing is this historic visit by the now heir to the throne, the Saudi Crown Prince, headed over to the United States. He's not just looking for U.S. corporates to invest in Saudi Arabia, for example. He's also looking to put a lot of Saudi Arabia's money to work in terms of the public investment fund, billions of dollars we've already seen them deploying globally. And I think that's something that you're going to continue to see over that 18-day trip from the Saudi Crown Prince. But I just want to give you a sense of the buzz here in Riyadh surrounding the Aramco IPO. You know, there are two narratives. One, that the company wasn't ready yet and wasn't going to be ready in time, and lots of worries over whether or not the transparency would really be up to snuff. But also a lot of questions over whether or not, you know, these ministers, and certainly the energy ministry, Hadley, has been really dropping hints for a while now as to what's going to happen in terms of, you know, there were a lot of raised eyebrows when he talked about, the legalities, you know, a couple of weeks ago. He also talked about, you know, worries about, you know, transparency. What it really comes down to, according to those here in the Arab press and here in Saudi Arabia, they basically say that, you know, the idea of frivolous lawsuits and certainly what's happening with the big oil majors in terms of the pushback on climate change that they're getting from Bill Blasio, for example, they were really worried about that. That was something that they thought, you know, could potentially really be a problem for Aramco. So there are conflicting narratives there, but I don't think this has anything to do with, you know, what you were mentioning about dampening the excitement surrounding the Crown Prince's visit to the United States. But I do want to mention what's happening here in Riyadh today. Why we're here. This is the second day of the Women Economic Forum, KSA, and this is the first women's business forum in Saudi Arabia ever. You have men and women mingling together. They're sitting in the audience together. They're on stage speaking together, networking. And this, of course, doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal to those of us in the West, but for Saudi Arabia, this is a really big deal. And of course, this all happens as the Crown Prince is making his, you know, inaugural journey as heir to the throne to the United States to really drum up investment and make some deals himself. Guys?
Hadley, those social and economic reforms will be widely tested on this trip from the Crown Prince. But I want to talk about defence, because there were some interesting comments just on the eve of this trip where the Crown Prince on CBS 60 Minutes that aired on Sunday was basically saying that the kingdom would work very quickly to obtain a nuclear bomb if Iran developed one. And now we're sort of in this world of an arms race where the North Koreans are talking about their weapons program, the Russians spoke aggressively about theirs before the election, and now the Saudis too. How will this go down with the domestic audience in the States?
In the United States, I think this is going to be interesting to watch going forward. I mean, this is a narrative that I've been pushing, a theme I've been pushing since, you know, way before the World Economic Forum in Davos, where I asked the energy about this. He said they were pretty close to reaching an agreement at that time with the Americans in terms of, you know, a deal with Westinghouse potentially to process their own nuclear fuel. I saw this coming a while ago, and I think this is something that we've kind of seen pop up. But in terms of the broader American audience, this is something that they're really waking up to, I think, in light of this interview. And I think, you know, here in Riyadh, this is nothing surprising. When you're talking about, you know, nuclear energy, their domestic consumption is extremely high in Saudi Arabia. Remember, of course, half of the year it's so hot here that you have to have air conditioning at all times across all venues, remember. So their domestic consumption is very high. And they knew early on in Saudi Vision 23 that they were going to have to invest in nuclear energy. They were talking about some 16 nuclear energy facilities across the country. But it's that question about, you know, bypassing 1, 2, 3 and going into processing your own nuclear fuel. But, you know, certainly this is the sort of undertone and message that we've been hearing from the Saudi Crown Prince for a long time now. This is the foreign policy narrative. This is all part of the Saudi versus Iran. This is all part of what we even saw with, you know, Saud Hariri resigning from Riyadh late last year. This is all part of that, you know, Saudi versus Iran narrative and what Saudi Arabia was prepared to do in terms of protecting their country. So this isn't something that's new in the region, but certainly for the United States and for the American audience, it's something that perhaps they're hearing for the very first time. Karen?
Still watching? Perfect. Click here to watch another great video from CNBC International. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.